So I've recently passed day 1000 in my hardcore world, and like nobody else ever, I had this cool idea to make a movie showcasing everything I've accomplished so far. In it, you'll get to see just how much better my editing and video quality has gotten since the start of my channel, and see how my style has evolved over the last 6 months. So, kick back, grab a snack, and enjoy the movie.
In standard fashion, the first thing I needed was wood. Lucky for me, I spawned in a tree and I instantly spotted a shipwreck along the beach. I got some wood and decided to loot the shipwreck before making any tools. In the shipwreck, I found iron, lapis, a coal helmet, and some nasty looking soup. Using the iron, I made myself some iron gear, skipping wood and stone tools completely. I grabbed some more wood and some sugarcane, and climbed a tree to get a better view of my surroundings. Jumping down, I noticed there was some lapis in the water, so I mined it, thought about following the shiny light, and decided that I didn't want to drown. Back on the surface, I introduced myself to the local wildlife and continued my journey inland. At the top of a hill, I spotted a few pumpkins, collected them, and high-fived a cow. I ended up next to a river and decided it would be easier to make a boat. I was starting to get hungry, so I cooked some food and thought about eating the nasty soup I found. To make things interesting, I decided I would save it and eat it on day 100. During my trip, I made a quick stop to mine some coal, then continued sailing. The sun was already setting, so I was thinking about stopping for the night when I turned around and saw a village, the perfect place to start out. I looted the chests, locked the villagers inside their houses for their own safety, and went to sleep. Except I didn't. In this episode, I'm not going to be sleeping at all, because I need as much time as possible to complete all my goals. I went back outside, high-fived some more cows, and got ambushed. Then I stole this nitwit's potatoes and killed my first zombie. I found some armor stands with some iron armor and completely forgot how armor stands work. Luckily, this creeper helped me out with one of them, and I remembered that I could use my hands for more than swinging an axe. With half a set of iron armor, I made my way over to an empty house and claimed it as my own. I emptied my inventory into a chest, cooked some food, and from what I could hear going on outside, I was probably going to need it. I stepped outside and immediately got attacked by a baby. Lucky for me, most of the zombies were stuck. I'm not sure what these things are supposed to be, but they're great for trapping mobs. I spent the rest of the night trying to get a zombie for my future iron farm, but not a single one would pick up an item. On day 1, I wasted no time and began digging out a room for my iron farm. I went back up to the surface to grab some beds and noticed an azalea tree right next to the village. I decided to come back and explore this later. I continued working on the farm, and definitely didn't refer to a tutorial or anything. My iron pick broke while making the farm, so I upgraded it to stone. Wait, what? That night, I released the villagers, and to my surprise, they actually made their way down to the farm on their own. I was so happy that I jumped down the hole, and yeah, this was way too close. I sealed the villagers into their new home, then went back up to the surface to get a zombie for the farm. Before I could, I was surrounded by 3 creepers and a skeleton. This skeleton was insane. He tried using the creepers as a weapon, but I was saved by my shield. Realizing his mistake, he tried to escape in my boat, but I was too quick for him. I started a zombie train, and finally got a zombie to pick up an item. He fell right into my trap, and I could already hear the iron farm working. But in order to finish this farm, I was going to need some lava. On day 2, I made a field for a wheat farm, and collected a bunch of seeds. 2, to be exact. And I realized I was going to have to find a place with more grass if I wanted to finish this farm. But first, I needed to finish my iron farm. After a little exploring, I found a plains biome and thought it might have lava. I stumbled across a cave that had a light coming from the inside, got excited, and realized it was just lichen. I decided to go a little deeper and actually found lava. When I got home, I placed the lava in the iron farm and found 2 pirates having a staring contest. I saved them from a zombie and locked them into a house where they can continue in safety. As the night was ending, I built a collection system for the iron farm and made some boots and pants to complete my first set of iron armor. Day 3, I went back to the plains biome and collected a bunch of seeds, this time more than 2. As the sun was setting, I noticed a village in the distance and decided to pay it a visit. I made an iron hoe and borrowed some of their hay. They had plenty, so I didn't think they would mind. During this, I noticed another village not too far away. I was high-fiving some cows, and this skeleton didn't like it. I blocked his next shot and it still hurt me somehow. I turned around and noticed a creeper behind me. It was a perfect opportunity to get a music disc, so that's exactly what I did. After that, I found one of SpaceX's old landing sites, grabbed some emeralds, and didn't panic at all on my way down this mountain. I visited the local library, found a free brewing stand, and visited a second library because knowledge is power. Day 4, I made it back to my base, planted the seeds, and realized I couldn't count. Then I built a sheep pen because I was going to turn wool into diamonds. I spent the rest of the day organizing my items and made a new chest for my most prized possessions. I wanted to save these items to remind me of my humble beginnings once I was rich and famous. That night, I experienced my first phantoms and fought bravely for a few seconds before cowering under this tree and running back into my house. Knowing I was going to have to get used to phantoms if I wasn't going to sleep, I made a new axe and went back outside to face the phantoms. I started off day 5 by making 2 new fields, one for carrots and another for potatoes. Then I found a few sheep and showed them the place they'd be staying for the next 80 days. I grabbed a few more sheep and bred them. The more sheep I could get, the faster I'd get diamonds. For the rest of the day and night, I faced my fear of the dark by placing as many torches as I possibly could. On day 6, I spent an embarrassingly long time working on this entrance to my mine. Needless to say, I'm not the best builder, but at least I had a place to get some stone. Then, I spent the next 24 hours in-game role-playing as a lumberjack. In all seriousness, I wanted to clear out an area for future builds, and this had the added benefit of taking away more areas mobs could hide. I actually ended up with a decent amount of wood at the end. For what was left of day 7, I planted some oak saplings and got the materials I would need for my next project. On day 8, it was time to build a wall. Before I could let the villagers out of their houses, I needed a way to protect them. I placed a rough outline of where I wanted the wall to be, and then ran into a problem. If I wanted this place to look good, the land separating the 2 rivers needed to go. So I added it to my to-do list and continued building the wall. And if this isn't the most beautiful build... okay, yeah, this is gonna need rebuilt later, but it'll work for now. At night, I began the 2-day project of uniting these 2 rivers. Unfortunately, I couldn't bring myself to destroy the Nitwit's house. I had already stole his life savings and locked him in my... Oh wait, no, it's gone. On day 11, the terraforming was complete, and I was actually quite happy with the result. The bottom of the river was very natural looking, and thanks to all that digging, I'm no longer dirt poor. I spent the entire night adding the back layer to my wall. And I've gotta say, I think it's looking less ugly than before, so mission successful? On day 12, I released the villagers from their homes. I also placed as many beds as I could fit in each of their houses. Rumor has it that half of the village population mysteriously disappeared into a hole in the ground and was never seen again, so I had some repopulating to do. The next day, 2 of the villagers retired from their day jobs and became farming partners. Wanting to show my support, I gave them some of the Nitwit's potatoes and they loved them. A lot. Then I found a cat in the village and was admiring its beauty when come on man, personal space. I made a fishing rod so I could get fish to feed the cat, but they didn't seem interested. So I jumped into the water and did some convincing. I'm really good with animals, so all I had to do to befriend it was chase it through the forest and cut off its only path of escape. I gave my new BFF the task of guarding the gaping hole in my wall, and now my defenses were impenetrable. I also fought my first Enderman. He may have had the reach advantage, but I had the low ground. Day 14, I decided to destroy this entire forest. Looking back, I'm not exactly sure why I did this. I still had plenty of wood and I didn't need oak for anything, but hey, at least I replanted most of them. I guess I couldn't just leave the trees alone. That night, while pondering if lava is wet, I grabbed 10 buckets of it. On my way home, I found this cute bunny. Surrounded by mobs, I thought it would be the perfect time to test out a new weapon I'd been developing. But it clearly wasn't ready yet, so I made the brave decision to run away. I started off day 15 by using the lava I collected to make my first nether portal. It was still pretty early for a nether trip, but I needed the blaze rods for potions if I was going to become rich. As I was finishing my fastest portal ever, I heard some weird sounds coming from one of the houses. But I'm sure they're fine. Needing a piece of flint, I grabbed my only gravel and managed to get it on the first try. Before entering the nether, I made a new set of iron armor from the ingots the golems gifted me. I hung up the old set and baked myself some pies for the journey. Before entering the portal, I traded my life savings for some arrows, and I was ready to go. Entering the nether for the first time, I was greeted by a ghast who instantly tried to kill me. I couldn't believe I spawned right next to a fortress. Wasting no time at all, I entered the fortress, killed my first blaze, and felt a warm tingly sensation that turned out to be fire. I healed my burns with bread, and turned around to notice 2 blaze spawners back to back. This would be perfect for a blaze farm if I ever needed one. I declined the tall skeleton's request to give me a hug, and proceeded to clear out the fortress. I found some nether warts, extinguished this guy who was on fire, and nearly ended up taking a very warm bath. In the fortress, I found my first diamonds, a saddle, and some horse armor. I found some more skeletons that were too tall for their own good, and wasn't at all jump scared by this ghast. I taught him a quick lesson and made my way over to the blaze spawners. Fighting blaze in iron gear is very risky, but it was something I had to do in order to make potions. Several 4th degree burns and an iron axe later, I had gathered 20 blaze rods and decided it would be enough to not have to visit my fiery friends again, or at least until I had better gear. I gathered some bone blocks, soul sand, and spent the rest of day 16, all of day 17, and most of day 18 mining gold. Mining is boring, so I'll save you the trouble. When I got back from the nether, I combined all the golden nuggets into ingots, and used the brewing sand I borrowed to make potions of weakness. Using the gold, I made 8 golden apples. At night, I captured a zombie so that I could introduce him to my villagers, but it turns out he never learned to swim, so I ended his suffering. On day 19, I began making an exquisite trading hall where I could conduct my business. Then, I turned wheat into sheep and found a new zombie friend for my villagers. As I was giving him a tour, an angry baby found a gap in my defenses. Using my quick reaction time, I trapped him in a boat, but the baby's twin brother had arrived and showed off some juke moves that would make Dante Hall blush. With my pride and my ankles broken, I tried to hide in one of the houses, but this little guy was relentless. I had no choice but to hold my ground. After putting the babies down for a nap, I returned to my trading hall. Using what I had learned from these things, I made one of my own at the back of the trading hall to hold my new zombie. Now, my trading hall was complete, but I decided to wait until more of the baby villagers grew up to start using it. I mean, come on, what do you think this is? Day 21, I built my first tower for the village. I wanted to make the roof out of acacia wood, but I didn't have any, so I didn't build the roof. The tower was looking decent, better than the wall at least, but I'll be upgrading it with the rest of the wall later on. That night, I was scarred for life. Now that the villagers had grown up, I selected 3 lucky gentlemen and proposed a deal. Once they were settled in their new offices, I locked in their trades and introduced them to their new friend. Except he didn't trust them yet, because he couldn't see their faces. So, on day 23, I raised the roof and rejoiced at the sounds of new friendships being made. After giving them their first cure, I met some friendly sea creatures and dyed some of the sheep for future sales. Once the villagers were cured, I organized another meeting with their friend and repeated the process. After that, I noticed my iron farm was no longer working. I thought it was this guy's fault, and it turns out that new weapon I've been developing works after all. I organized the final meeting, but I accidentally locked eyes with the zombie and he came out to see me. Iron Man showed up to save the day, and this made me very happy. Because I interrupted the meeting, only 2 of the villagers were converted. I tried to fix it by opening the trapdoor, but it opened the opposite way I wanted it to and chaos ensued. I went back up to the surface, hoping the problem would fix itself, but when I tried to go back down, another escaped. Luckily, Iron Man was still there to save the day, and this made me even happier. Day 24, I tried to salvage what I could from the previous night's disaster. I gave the surviving villagers their final cure and witnessed some children playing Follow the Leader. Ready to work on my business, I went back to the trading hall and noticed one of the children had snuck in somehow. I let him out, blocked off all entrances, and was greeted by another child. Now, completely convinced I was witnessing some sort of black magic, I let this child out as well. I made my first trades and had a full stack of emeralds within seconds. Then I noticed more villagers had made their way into the trading hall, and realized the children weren't evil wizards after all. Around midnight, I woke up this farmer because I wanted a snack, and after a little convincing, I now had an unlimited supply of my favorite food. On day 25, I traded with a weaponsmith who sold me a pretty decent enchanted sword, and before I knew it, I had access to my first enchanted diamond tools. The next day, I made a makeshift system to collect saplings, and proceeded to test out my new axe. Then I made some deals with my first armorer, who would turn out to be very important later on. That night, I was visited by the Invisible Man, and I used a boat to rob him peacefully. Then I returned to the Nether and started a mine. Day 27 consisted of bed mining, and some more bed mining. It was my first time trying this method, and I'll never be going back to chunk border mining. Although it was a little early to be looking for cinnamon rolls, I was mainly interested in gold for more golden apples, and I thought I could knock out 2 birds with 1 stone. I returned home on day 28, pockets filled with gold. Okay, not really, the haul was rather disappointing, but what wasn't disappointing was that my new armorer friend could now sell me diamond armor. Just as the night was coming to an end, I managed to get a new zombie to replace the one Iron Man killed. As the sun rose on day 29, we went on a pleasant boat ride together. Afraid that Iron Man wouldn't like my new friend, I showed him the tower I built, and he jumped up and down with glee. With Iron Man distracted, I showed my new friend his home. Then I turned 2 more lucky gentlemen into shepherds and unlocked the final trades for full diamond armor. I bought boots, pants, and a helmet, but I couldn't afford the chestplate yet. That night, I began moving the iron farm. It turned out that the surface golems weren't the issue at all. It was just too close to the other villagers. This time, I had the farm memorized, and by morning, it was almost finished. I just needed the zombie and some volunteers. On day 30, I did some trading, completed my first set of diamond armor, and captured another zombie for the new iron farm. Also, in case you guys are wondering, I'm using the data pack More Mob Heads, which gives all mobs a chance to drop their heads. This is how these guys have phantom heads on. Day 31, I got my first librarian villager, and after just 2 in-game hours of refreshing trades, I already had access to mending books. During the night, I gathered all the brave volunteers and moved them to the iron farm. As I was placing the lava, I ended up in a pretty awkward situation. But again, my 2 brain cells came in clutch. After placing the water, I now had a fully functioning iron farm again, and I hoped it would stay that way. The next day, I got a toolsmith and gained access to diamond hoes and diamond shovels. Iron Man 2 had arrived to free Iron Man, but I wasn't going to have it. I was actually really worried I'd hit one on accident while fighting phantoms, and I wasn't going to lose my hardcore world to a golem. With tying things to fence posts on my mind, I decided to go tame a horse. But since it was night, I got a little distracted along the way. After dealing with the Enderman, I got back in my boat, but I was interrupted again, this time by a drowned with a trident. I dealt with him and encountered another one. To my surprise, this one actually dropped his trident, and it had really good durability as well. I couldn't find my boat, but I realized that the drown must have destroyed it. So I continued on foot. I found another cute bunny, made it to the plains biome, and found the perfect horse. In no time, I had him tamed and saddled, and decided to name him Teddy. I tested out his speed and vertical jump, gave him some armor, and headed home. That evening, I finally got my first diamond pickaxe from the toolsmith and now had access to unlimited diamond tools. That night, I wanted another midnight snack and had cinnamon rolls on my mind. I didn't stop until I had enough to coat all my gear with it, which took over 2 days, so enjoy this time lapse. With a grand total of 44 cinnamon rolls, I now had the perfect amount I would need and went back home. At home, I wanted to get better enchantments on my gear before upgrading it to netherite. My mending villager also had Feather Falling 3 books, so I instantly bought 2 and added them to my boots along with mending. This would give me a lot more leeway for future mistakes, which I was sure there would be a lot of. On day 37, I replaced one of the new shepherds so I'd have a better balance of trades for each color of wool. Then I added a new librarian, and the first trade he had was for power 5, which I couldn't pass up. I started making a basement where I could place my enchantment table when the impossible happened. My defenses were penetrated from above. My wall had failed me yet again. I took a peek outside and decided I wasn't interested in whatever these ladies were selling. But they had already noticed me, so I had to confront them. They drank some potions and disappeared from my land. I returned to the basement and continued digging like the mole rat I am. I even added some oak slabs to make it look pretty. Then I added the enchantment table, a chest, and an anvil. On day 38, my luck with the librarians continued. I got a looting 3 trade without any refreshing. I was picky with the next librarian though, because I desperately needed fortune. I destroyed his workplace over and over, even passing up a sharpness 5 trade, but he eventually gave me what I wanted. Needing more emeralds for these books, I added a high-tech force field around some of the villagers so that the zombie would spend more time getting to know my new shepherds. He couldn't get close enough to give them hugs, so I let them out of their offices to make things easier. I returned to the meeting with a cure and shared it with my friends. I started off day 39 by enchanting a diamond sword and got quite lucky. I usually go for sharpness on my swords, but I kept this one anyways. After that, I learned that my friends didn't like their new sunroof very much, so I took it down. I brought them another cure to make up for it, and then worked on a problem with my sheep. You see, most of the sheep were light gray, but none of my shepherds liked that color, so they had to die. Be dyed. I returned to my friends, gave them the final cure, and disabled the force field protecting the other villagers. It was time to start taking security more seriously. Another attack from the sky would be a huge setback if it hurt my cured shepherds, so I added another layer to my defenses. It was ugly, but it was efficient. I then performed the world's cleanest water bucket and did some trading. Trading each wool for an emerald, I could get up to 2 stacks of emeralds in just a few seconds. With my newfound wealth, I wanted to buy some more golden carrots, but my best farmer was out of commission, so I found a new one. I returned to my basement to do some enchanting. I got a fire protection book and combined 2 pickaxes into the perfect pick, and right away used my cinnamon rolls to upgrade it. With my new fortune pick, I spent the whole night mining the gold I uncovered while bed mining. On day 41, I returned to the surface with over 100 ingots, which would be more than enough to make all the netherite ingots. Then I got a new librarian, and after a couple refreshes,
10 years later,
had access to efficiency 5. I added looting 3 to a new sword I enchanted, and went to the nether in hopes of getting all the ender pearls I would need for the dragon. I tested out my new bow and sword, and even found 2 endermen in the Soul Sand Valley. It was a good start, but I needed more pearls. Next, I tried trading with some pig people, found another enderman, and did some more trading. But after a full day of giving them every piece of gold I could find, I didn't get any pearls in return. So I said goodbye and made my way back to the fortress. At this point, I figured my best option would be to mine through this wall and hope to find a warped forest on the other side. It didn't work, but it led me to another waste biome where I found the pig people's home. Now, I'll be honest, I don't have any experience raiding bastions, so bear with me. All I knew was that there was supposed to be some gold and loot at the bottom. I quietly made my way into the bastion by smashing through the wall, and began picking off every brute I could find. I pillared up to the top, didn't see anything shiny, and went back down. On the way, this brute was so scared of me that he jumped off the bridge and somehow lived. I fixed that, which upset his brother, and I found out how ridiculously hard these guys hit. One more hit there and I probably would have died. I made a new shield, grabbed 2 gold blocks, and decided that I would get whatever was at the bottom and make my escape. I helped another pig who wanted to die, and finally arrived at the bottom of the bastion where I was greeted by some magma cubes. One almost chest bumped me into the lava, so I blocked myself off, retook the high ground, and killed the last brute. Other than the cinnamon rolls and gold blocks, the loot was pretty bad, but I now had enough to trade for all the pearls I would need. I popped a fire res potion and got out of there. Once I got back, I killed another enderman, owned the skeleton, and found some more pig people to trade with. I traded for most of day 44. Little did they know I was selling them their own gold. Once I had enough pearls, I decided what was worth taking home and went back to the portal. For the rest of the night, I organized my chests, made some slow falling potions, and put mending on the rest of my armor. Once I had everything I needed, it was time to find the stronghold. I threw my first die, broke it, and hopped on Teddy. I found some gold, burned my feet, and met some skeletons who were horrible at their job. After passing the villages I found earlier on, things got messy. To make a long story short, the next 2 days went something like this. Until I finally dug down and found it. While searching for the portal room, I found some diamond horse armor, extra pearls, and some stairs that led me right to it. I placed the eyes of my enemies into the frame, unlocking a portal into a new dimension. Oh, that's kinda dark. I made a new shield and hopped into the portal. So I think this is where I'm supposed to edit out all the shots I missed to make myself look better, but I didn't miss any. So here's the raw and totally unedited footage. After collecting all the XP, the dragon head, and the egg, I went home. Then realized I probably should have set my spawn at the stronghold because now I had to go all the way back to get Teddy. It was a long walk, but when I finally got there, I gave Teddy the diamond armor I found at the stronghold, and we went back home. Day 49, I bought a fresh set of armor and tools from the villagers. I used all the XP from the dragon to enchant and combine the enchantments on the new gear. Once I was happy, I upgraded my silk pickaxe, axe, shovels, and most importantly, my hoe to netherite. I started upgrading my armor, but realized I didn't have enough experience to finish the boots. On day 50, I got all the XP I needed by trading, and combined the boots, upgraded them, and covered myself in cinnamon rolls. I got some more levels, made a Smite 5 sword, and used the final netherite ingot to upgrade it. I got some more levels and added unbreaking to my bow, and fire protection to my chestplate. I knew I'd be fighting a lot of blaze in the future, so this seemed like a good investment. My hoe was looking dull, so I gave it a quick enchant. And there we have it, 2 of my major goals already complete. I went through my gear nice and slow here in case you wanted the details. Not too shabby for 50 days, and all it took was some wool. On day 51, I maxed out my first librarian, and bought 2 name tags. One for Teddy, and another for the cat that you probably forgot about by now. I named her Lily, and after, went to the nether to break some rules. You see, the nether is filled with lots of stuff trying to kill me. But it's really useful for traveling, so I decided to go where nothing could hurt me, above the bedrock. Getting up there was much easier than making a way down. First, I tried to use the power of beds to make a hole down, but it didn't work the first time, the second time, or the third. I concluded that this method must be outdated, so I turned to plan B and went back to the overworld to cry myself to sleep. But I can't sleep, so I got everything for a method that I knew would work. Day 52, I used a more reliable method and made a hole first try. Now, all I had to do was remove this, place the ladders I had prepared, and voila! Using a calculator I borrowed from NASA, I did some insane calculations and figured out I needed to build my next portal right here. Perfect, my new man cave. No, not really. I broke it down, dug straight down because I'm indestructible now, was reminded that I'm not indestructible now, and put it here. While I was there, I decided to loot the rest of the stronghold and evicted any of the inhabitants I found. I found some crazy loot, like look at this book and all these cobwebs. I was so happy that I went home early. With plans to go searching for my first elytra soon, I wanted to get as much gunpowder for rockets that I could. So I went back to the plains biome to see if anyone there had any. I tested out my new sword and man, I love Smite now. When I got back home, I realized I didn't plant any sugarcane yet. So I planted some and embarked on a long journey across the river to get more. Then I spotted a shipwreck and found some other green stuff I didn't have yet, so I took it. On the way home, I met some new friends and showed them my new favorite sword. At home, I planted all the sugarcane I had found. On day 55, I was getting tired of waiting for the sugarcane to grow. Then I remembered the Stronghold library still had paper, so I went back to get it. I now had everything I needed for some end busting, so I hopped into the portal. I built some stairs up to the gateway and proceeded to baby-proof it. Then I went a step further and with the help of a trapdoor, crawled in like the baby I am. And if you weren't thinking I used a god seed by now, you probably are now. Anyways, I pillared up halfway to the ship and decided to show off my ender pearl skills. Flawless. In the ship, I found some potions, killed Oscar the Grouch's grandma, looted the chests, and got my first elytra, which I instantly put mending on. For the rest of the day and most of day 56, I did a lot of this, and a lot more of this. Once the city was cleared out, I was thinking about going home, but I only had 28 shulker shells so far, and I really didn't want to come back here anytime soon, so I decided to keep going. I found another end city just a few hundred blocks away, and repeated everything I had done for the last 20 minutes over again, so there went the rest of day 56 and most of day 57. Satisfied with the 53 shulker shells I had gotten, I found another end gate, and this time was brave enough to throw a pearl. I hate doing this because one time I missed and was teleported into the void, but I didn't feel like building stairs. The pearl worked perfectly and I finally went home. Happy to be back in the overworld, I got 2 new librarians and refreshed their trades. The first one gave me Unbreaking 2 and I decided to keep it. Since I had unlimited emeralds, I could just combine them into Unbreaking 3 books. The second had Silk Touch, which is nice to have, so I locked it in. Using my new trades, I added Unbreaking to my first elytra and then maxed out my spare. Having an elytra meant I would lose inventory space due to the rockets and chestplate I would carry, so I made a backpack for extra space, filling it with everything that I thought might be useful to have with me. That night, I flew back to the plains and... Back at home, I turned all the gunpowder into more rockets and put the extras in my backpack. Then I kidnapped a cartographer, so I had access to maps. I bought an ocean map and a mansion map that I could use later on. I thought it would be nice to have a map of my village, so I did one lap, made a map, and that was that.
I'll get you, and I'll look like a bloody accident.
Day 60, I was feeling adventurous. I used the map to pinpoint exactly where the woodland mansion was. By my calculations, I guessed it was somewhere this way. On the way, I turned this chicken into a book so I could write down coordinates of every cool place I found. Sure, I could have just taken screenshots, but then I would have needed to think of a different excuse to kill this chicken. During the journey, I found a frozen ocean, a big mushroom island, this adorable puppy, a giant taiga, and this snowy mountain that I thought looked cool. I arrived at the mansion at sunset and my calculations had been correct. It was indeed somewhere in that direction. I was going to go through the window, but that's loud, so I broke through the wall into what looked like a boxing ring. I fixed the wall, leaving it exactly how I found it, and skipped down the hall. The third floor was quiet. Too quiet. So I passed a lovely gentleman on the way down the stairs, and then out of nowhere, an evoker appeared. I charged it, taking it out, but learned that the Vexes were the real threat, and had no choice but to run. I climbed up a ladder, healed myself, and picked them off one by one. I was taking a music disc from the chest when another Vex arrived, and I don't know what happened to it. In the chaos, I forgot to grab the totem from the hallway. You know, like, the whole reason I came here. I continued exploring, killing everything in my path, called on my friend Iron Man to help, and couldn't find any other evokers. I spent the whole night and half of day 61 running around in circles before realizing I had already found everything this place had to offer. Not wanting to end the journey on a disappointing note, over the next 3 days I made Dora proud and explored so much more of my world. In my travels, I found Uranus, an ocean monument, my spawn, another monument, a jungle, this cool island, an ice spikes biome, some buried treasure, a savanna, a badlands biome, a desert with a desert temple, a pillager outpost, a tiny coral reef, a not so tiny coral reef, and the smallest swamp I've ever seen. At this point, I had found so many unique biomes, and wrote them all down in my book so I could come back to them later. I made it home late at night on day 63, and being almost 2/3 of the way to day 100, I still needed to defeat the Wither and bring home a beacon to achieve my goals. However, the last time I worked on anything in this village, it was the tower I finished on day 21, that still didn't even have a roof. Needless to say, it was time to give this place a long overdue makeover. Day 64, I moved the whole trading hall down a block, so now it looked like this instead of this. Then I tricked the rest of the villagers into believing the world was ending, and locked them in a bunker where they'd be out of my way. I also named the blaze rod I used to kill the ender dragon because I almost turned it into a brewing stand. With that sorted, I began destroying everything I had built so far. Let's just say that I had a new vision for this place and it didn't include this, as flawless as it was. On day 66, I finally had everything I needed to build version 2 of my wall. The main part of the wall was finished on day 66, and I was much happier with this version than the last. It looked way more natural, and it better fit the style that I was going for. Then, it was time to destroy everything the villagers owned. I wanted to start with a clean slate and add my own buildings here, so the houses and pathways needed to go. All except mine, of course. Day 69 consisted of a lot of wood, as it should, at least until I noticed a parade. I tried to join in, but they were all gone before I got the chance. At this point, I noticed the villagers in the iron farm were being awfully quiet for some reason. So I decided to check on them, and turns out there was no one to check on. I ran through every possible way that this could have happened and realized I forgot one step. So yeah, I guess a zombie or two spawned down here, and that's okay because I love transporting villagers. So much that I chose to save it for another day and fix the farm later. Then I went back into my mine for the first time since building it to get some stone and andesite for my builds. I found a huge vein of andesite and a cave that led me here. Ta-da! This was my first time capturing an axolotl and it was flawless. I didn't know what I wanted to do with it once I caught it, but that was really the only thing I came down here for, so I went back up to mine. Day 70, I emerged from my mine, and because I'm so caring, I gave the axolotl its freedom back. I put it in the river and never saw it again. Now that I had all the materials, it was time to get back to building, starting with the new tower designs. All 5 towers were completed in 2 days. I was on a roll and went straight to building the main gate. I wanted to keep things simple here and also used a trick with ladders and carpets. If you didn't know already, mobs can't pathfind over ladders with carpets on top, which allows for open mob-proof doors like this one. Now, you might be wondering why I would build a main gate that leads directly to a river. I wanted to have a bridge across somewhere along the river and this seemed like the perfect spot. Now, at this point I was trying to think of a joke about my unfinished bridge, but it's too hard to get across. I went for a simple wooden design, and I think it suits this place well. Now this place was starting to come together, but the wall could use some more detail, so it was time to put that stone and andesite to good use. And in just 9 days, I had transformed this into this. While I had made a lot of progress, I couldn't end the first 100 days without adding any buildings, so I got straight to work on the most important one of them all, the town hall. And why not make it even more difficult by building it diagonally? I started with a stone foundation and built the frame of the tower that would later hold the bell. This was by far the most time-consuming build so far, so I've condensed it down into a time-lapse of day 75 through 82. On day 82, the town hall was complete. I really like this style, and it's going to serve as a reference for the rest of the builds in this village. I released the villagers from their bunker and moved their beds to the upstairs of the town hall, since I didn't have any other plans for that space yet. Then I made a pathway with a mix of coarse dirt, dirt paths, and granite. I used bone meal to add some more greenery around the outside of the wall to make up for what I had destroyed, and didn't give this spider the time of day. Out of curiosity, I updated the maps and was reminded that I forgot to move the lightning rod. I nailed the landing and moved it to the top of the bell tower. On day 83, I wanted to focus on my moneymakers here, because being crammed in this tiny pen since day 5 had left them in a bad mood. Oh my god. I built a larger pen, moved the sheep inside, and began working on the barn. It was easy to build and only took a little more than a day. On day 85, I removed the map and the rest of the crops. On day 86, I decided I could no longer tolerate cramming everything I owned into a tiny villager house, so I began working on a storage room under the town hall. I went for a damp and mossy style room, and used barrels for most of the storage. It only took a day to build, but that was the easy part. Before sorting out my items, there were a few imposters hiding amongst the sheep. I couldn't have that, so I brought out Old Reliable. I was very careful to make sure not a single sheep was hurt in the process. Also, I'm sure you've all noticed the floating fence post left over from the map by now. If not, I'm sorry, you can't unsee it now. I have no idea how I didn't notice it with how many times I walked past it, but it's gonna be there for a while. With the imposters taken care of, I began moving all my belongings into my new storage. Even taking 4 shulkers of items over at a time, this still took 3 days, but it was 100% worth it in the end. The storage was finally organized by day 90. With only 10 days left, I still needed to defeat the Wither and get a full beacon to complete my goals. I made some golden apples to carry with me in case things got sketchy, and went to the Nether Fortress. I needed Wither Skulls and I needed them fast. Okay, this wasn't gonna work, so I flew to the Soul Sand Valley in hopes of finding a new fortress, and eventually I did. With my Smite 5 sword and fire protection chestplate, killing these Wither Skellies and Blaze was a breeze. I made it home on day 92 and it was time to get trading. With my iron farm still broken, my only chance at a full beacon was getting emeralds by trading. For the next 5 days, all I did was trade wool for emeralds during the day and work on other stuff during the night, like killing squids for ink to trade for even more emeralds. On the night of day 94, I decided to fix the iron farm. I gathered all 3 villagers and was ready to move them in when one's head fell off. It was truly a tragedy, but one I didn't have time for. So I got the other 2 into the farm and found a replacement for the 3rd. Unfortunately, it was one of my master farmers, but I didn't have time to be picky. Sealing the villagers in, I was about to fix the killing chamber when this happened. If I didn't have my chestplate equipped, so I wouldn't have survived this. I still have no idea why the golem attacked me. It had just spawned. I guess one of the villagers must have ratted me out for decapitating their friend. I finished the farm and got out of there. Then it was back to shearing and trading. This is the moment I finally noticed the fence. I was really confused because it had been over 10 days in game, and several in real life hours since I removed the map, so I had no idea where it came from. Day 96, all I did was trade, and on day 97, I finally had enough emerald blocks for my beacon. On day 98, I had some extra time to explore the lush cave under the azalea tree I found earlier on. I found a mine shaft on the way down, but there was no time for that, so I kept going until I found it. The lush cave I had been waiting to explore. And yeah, quite underwhelming. Nowhere near as nice as the one I found in my mine, so I grabbed the diamonds I found and flew out. After a drive-by milking, I had everything I needed for the wither fight, so I hopped on Teddy and rode over to the Badlands portal. That's right, no underground tunnels or end portal cheese here. I was fighting the wither fair and square on the surface. Starting the fight with other mobs around sounded like a death wish, so I killed the rest of the night by killing everything in sight.
I will end you!
With the sun out and all the mobs dead, it was go time. This was the only thing left between me and completing all of the goals I had set. The fight was easier than expected, but it was my first time fighting the Wither legitimately, so I didn't want to be underprepared. With the Wither defeated, there was only one goal left to complete. I raced home, placed all the blocks for my beacon, and boom. Just like that, I had completed all my goals within 100 days. I killed the dragon, got full netherite gear, killed the Wither, got a full beacon, and had a place I could call home. It wasn't complete yet, but it was a start. I still have many ideas for this place, which I've written down here, and I'll be working on them in the future. Here it was, day 100, the final day. I took this time to expand the path a bit, even adding some of the rooted dirt I'd found. Then I built a new shack for Teddy alongside the barn, and filled it with hay and water. With the day coming to an end, I climbed up into my tower, played the music disc I had got from the Woodland Mansion, and watched the sunset over everything I had created. After the sunset, I still had one thing left to do. I grabbed the soup that I had been saving since day 1 and finally ate it. Turns out it was my favorite flavor. Poison. So last episode, I got my hardcore world off to a great start, but it's time to start thinking bigger. How big? Well, killing the Ender Dragon 19 times, fighting 4 withers at once, and killing 21,449 Endermen to transform my boring old End Island into this. If you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing. So far, I haven't needed any totems in this world, but based on the chaos that I'm about to put myself through, I'm probably going to want to have some just in case. I think the quickest way to get some would be to just build a simple raid farm near the outpost I found in the last video. So if my math is right, this portal should lead... Okay, yeah, perfect. Now I just need to find somewhere that's mostly flat. Oh. Yeah, I can't have you stealing my bad omen. Sorry, it's not me, it's you. This looks flat enough. Now, I need to get a villager over here somehow. I should be able to find one at the village over here. Maybe not. Oh wait. Perfect. Let me just move you from this hole into this other hole. And it should be good to go now. I just need some bad omen. There we go. Hey, it works. Nice. So that's one raid finish, but I only have 5 totems, and I'd like to fill this whole shulker, so... And that took way longer than expected, but I have the totems. So my totems look a little different now. Since I'm gonna have them on screen pretty much 24/7, I thought it would be cool to personalize them a bit. It also gives me the option to do cool stuff like this. Next up on the list is glass. Once I transform the end, respawning the dragon will ruin my hard work. So I want to collect a full shulker of dragon's breath first. I can't remember the last time I actually used this stuff, but I'll get some just in case. I should be able to get most of the glass from my librarians. I may or may not have just murdered one of the villagers on accident, so I'm gonna have to boycott these absurd prices and move on to the next step for now. It's time to take this new sharpness sword and make some ghasts cry. This should be the last one. Yeah, that's enough. The prices are still high, so I'm gonna have to AFK in this corner for a bit. Okay, I'm back. Hopefully that was long enough. Yep. Nice. Alright, finally. That's enough glass. Time to craft up these end crystals and kill the dragons. I'm just gonna get these bottles of dragon's breath over with first, so I don't have to worry about them during the other 18 fights. I don't think I've ever wanted to use an auto clicker more than I do right now. Well, my arm hurts, but that's a shulker full. Let's kill these dragons. That's 1, ow, 2, 3, 4, 5, ow, 6. Now, for some reason, when I was restocking food and arrows, I thought it would be a good idea to bring my beacon to the end. It lasted through fight 7, but then, I guess it's fitting that 8 ate my beacon. I got my revenge and moved on to 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I'm getting better at this counting thing. 16, 17, 18, and 19. With my bare hands. That should be all the gateways open. As you can imagine, killing 21,449 Endermen is going to take a toll on my armor. So far, my main source of experience has been trading with my villagers, but traveling back and forth from my base to the end every few minutes to repair my gear just isn't an option. So it's time to build an Enderman farm. Oh, yeah, maybe I should have spawn-proofed that first. Oh well. Off you go. I've only got 15 pearls, so hopefully I can get lucky with the, okay, that was lucky. Endermite. Let me just make sure it works. Yeah, I think it's working. I do want to clean it up a bit, though. So I'm back at my nether mine, and I'm just gonna grab a few more cinnamon rolls for my new sword and 2 new chest plates. The one I have now is fire protection, and I'm gonna need one of each type, so... that'll do. Alright, so there's good news and bad news. The bad news is I'm running low on emeralds, and Dragon 8 just ate a whole stack of my emerald blocks. But the good news is my iron farm is actually working for once, so I should have enough blocks for a new beacon. I think that's enough blocks for 4 beacons. Well, not 4 beacons, like a quad beacon, I guess? Now I need to get the actual beacon part. Luckily, this fortress I found earlier has decent spawn rates. Let me just get 12 skulls real quick. Yeah, that took 2 hours, but it gave me some time to think. Last episode, I fought one wither on the surface and it was way easier than expected, so why not one-up myself and try fighting all 4 at the same time? Now, I don't know if this is even possible, but I'm gonna give myself every advantage I can and hope for the best. I've decided I'm gonna do the fight on the nether ceiling because then I won't have to worry about the wither breaking the blocks under me. And I should have everything I need now, hopefully. My hands are already sweating. Alright, kids, don't try this at home. That was probably the most insane thing I've ever done in this game. And my armor barely got scratched. I think I could do more than 4 actually. But not this episode, we still gotta transform the end. Now that I have the beacons, I'd like to get the rest of the blocks out of the way so I don't have to stop and get more. Let's start with the quartz. Oh boy. Okay, so it took 2 hours to get this shulker full and a couple stacks, and I might go insane if I have to mine any more, so I'm just gonna call it here and hope that that's enough. For bone blocks, I think my best bet is to just make a mob grinder, and AFK there for bones. It'll also give me a supply of gunpowder as well, so it's a win-win. I've got just about everything I need. I'll just need wood for slabs and bamboo for scaffolding. I ran out of string, but that should be enough for about half the layers. Now I'm just gonna AFK for a few hours. Okay, so that's a good start, but it's not quite enough, so... Alright, that's more like it. Onto the glass, which should be easier this time. Perfect, that didn't take long at all. And I was sick of this happening, so I finally labeled my pickaxes. Now deep slate. I think the best way to get this is to just use the gunpowder I farmed and make TNT. Nice, now just 2 shulkers of cobbled deep slate. Perfect. The last block on our list is the skull catalysts, but before I can get those, I need to update my world to 1.19. Alright, so the world is updated, but unfortunately not all my mods are updated to 1.19 yet, so I'm going to have to rely on this mess of a menu for my coordinates and my day counter. Now, I've already explored a 5,000 by 5,000 area around my spawn, so the only way I'm going to find an ancient city is by going outside that area. I've heard ancient cities are supposed to spawn under mountains, so I just need to find some. Ooh, a mangrove swamp. And it's huge. Ooh, a frog. Do a jump. This might be my new favorite mob. I'm just going to borrow some of these new blocks and back to looking for an ancient city. Nothing down here. Maybe under this mountain? This is pretty deep, but no dark. How about here? How deep is the dark? Okay, nothing here. Maybe these mountains aren't big enough. Now that's a mountain. And that's an ancient city. And now I'm nervous. This is my first time doing this, and I think I have a decent understanding of how this stuff works, but the warden isn't very forgiving. So if I break this first, I should be fine. Oh. Okay, yeah. Now, I'm really only here for these catalysts, but I'd love to get my hands on a quick Sneak 3 book and the new music disc while I'm here. I need to break... Oh, that's not good. I can't see. So that's exactly what I don't want to do. I don't think it spawned a warden yet though, so let's keep going. Oh, I think that might have been another one. I need to be more careful. Wait, what did I do that time? Okay, no, that was just dumb. That was definitely a warden. I think I just heard him go back underground. So it seems like I should be able to just fly away if I make any mistakes. So let me just get to looting. Not much here. Swift sneak? No. Hey, my first disc fragment. A few more. Ooh, swift sneak too, nice. Mistakes were made. Oh, there he is. Swift sneak? Not quite. Hey, my first enchanted apple. I'm just gonna put this on my pants now, and I'll upgrade it to 3 later. This feels so weird. Look at me go. Enough fooling around, let's speed this up, shall we? So I've got enough shards for the disc, and some extra swift sneak books, so it's time to get the rest of the catalysts and get out of here. So that's everything we need for the transformation. Let me just make a protection 4 chest plate and head over to the end. Now you might be wondering what the plan is. Well, each time I kill an enderman near a catalyst, a few blocks are converted into skulk, like this. So I just need to do that over and over and over, until this whole island is skulk. I've got these beacons to make things easier, but this is still going to take a while. Also, before we start, I've killed 973 endermen. I'm not going to count those towards the final total. So let's do this. I've converted a decent sized patch here, but my armor is already shredded, so that's better. And that's the entire area between the pillars complete. I think I'm just gonna have to do this outer ring in sections and move the beacon each time. It should make for a cool looking time lapse though. The skulk is finally finished. That alone took 18 hours, but there's still more to do. The obsidian pillars are still looking pretty default. So I'm gonna turn them into candles to match the deep dark theme. Now we can't just have candles standing on top of the end. I mean, come on, that would be unrealistic. So I'm gonna use the deep slate I gathered to make some candle holders. But first, I need to take the thick obsidian pillars and slim them down a bit. That was painful. Time for the candle holders. Yeah, that looks like something. Now I just need to do it 9 more times. Alright. Now for the candles, I'm gonna use the quartz and bone blocks I collected. Alright, I like it. I tried to make the shorter ones look more melted and messy. I think it looks good, but now we need to light them. I've never tried to build fire before, but that really sells it. I like how the shaders make it glow. Now, I would stop here, but the area around the portal looks a little empty. Kinda like my village. To fill up the space, I'm gonna try to replicate this tower thing that generates in ancient cities. I like that a lot actually, and I just thought of an idea for the chest. I'll use the Enderman heads I got to record the number I killed to make this project, which was 22,422 minus the 973 that I already killed, 21,449 Endermen. That's insane. You know what else is insane?
I built a beacon out of every full block in hardcore Minecraft. As the video goes on, the blocks get more and more difficult to collect, and the most difficult ones might be a little unexpected. The full beacon is going to consist of 362 different blocks and take up a 19 by 19 area, so it's probably best if I don't try to cram it inside my village. Instead, I'm going to give this old bridge an actual purpose and make a clearing for it on the other side of the river. So I've cleared out this area and extended the path to the building site, but before I start collecting the blocks, I need to build the beacon's core. Now the beacon part. Perfect. Now that we have a blank canvas, it's time to start collecting the blocks. I've got a basic plan for how I want to do this, but knowing me, I'll probably get distracted along the way. I'm going to begin by getting all the easy blocks on the surface. Now I could just use all the blocks I have in my storage, but that would be cheating, right? I hope so, because I'm going to get a fresh set of all 362 blocks, starting with grass, birchwood, oak wood, dark oak, spruce, mushroom blocks, and azalea leaves. For the rest of the trees, we're gonna have to go on a bit of an adventure, but I should be able to collect some more blocks along the way, like pumpkins. Now, fair warning, when I said I was gonna get distracted, this adventure was exactly what I was talking about. I set off to collect each type of wood, but by the time I returned home, I had collected almost every block from the surface. Just know that the rest of the block collecting will be more organized into specific categories. You know what, this will give me a head start on some of the nether blocks and some stone blocks I'll need later. There's a bee nest. I'll get a few more for the honey and wax I'm gonna need. That's acacia wood. That's powdered snow. Powdered snow? Wait, it's powder snow? I swear everyone calls it powdered. Snow block. Don't mind me just passing through. I'll just kelp myself. Yeah, that's for later. Mangrove leaves, mangrove wood, roots, mud, muddy roots, jungle wood, jungle leaves, melon brock, bamboo for scaffolding, and my personal favorite, beans. I think I'm gonna head back now. Gold block, terracotta, cacti, sand, red sand. Time for some more borrowing, barrel.
Oh, dude, nice house.
Smooth stone, cartography table. Okay, now I'll actually start going back. And the last block of the trip, moss. Now I can finally start placing them. As I go, I'm keeping track of each one I place with a checklist I made of all 362 blocks. Otherwise, this project would be a complete mess. Let's get started. Wait, how am I going to... Okay, that's a problem for later. That's 79 blocks placed already. I have a few left over, but I'm gonna save them until I have the rest of the blocks that go with them. Next, I'm gonna get all the nether blocks except for ancient debris and the netherite block. Those are more difficult to get, so they'll be at the top of the beacon. There's glowstone, quartz, soul sand, soul soil, basalt, bone blocks, gold, all the crimson forest blocks, all the bastion blocks, fortress blocks, and warped forest blocks. So that's all the easy blocks from the nether. I'm just gonna craft up the different variations of them, and that's 123 blocks complete. Now I want to fill in this gap with some of the utility blocks. Admittedly, not all of these are full blocks. For some reason, I thought you could collect the infested stone blocks with Silk Touch, but I was wrong, so I needed to call in some of the backup blocks that didn't quite make the starting lineup. For the third row, I'm gonna get all the different kinds of color blocks, starting with dyed wool, dyed glass, concrete powder, concrete, terracotta, and glazed terracotta. That was a lot of blocks, 97 to be exact, which means we only have 129 left. Before I get into the more dangerous and difficult blocks, I want to quickly finish the rest of the surface blocks that I missed earlier. Here's podzol, packed ice, regular ice. Nice. Mycelium, honey, more red sand because I forgot about red sandstone, and here's the coral block. Perfect, time to place them all. Okay, yeah, I don't know why I thought that might work. The cactus block just isn't cooperating, so I've exiled it from the list, and the grindstone has taken its place. There's the coral dun, podzol, mycelium, and all the snow-related blocks. Now it's finally time to get all the cave blocks. There's coal, iron, diorite, or like dire wrong, am I right? Emerald, copper, flowering azalea, dripstone, regular azalea, go away. Clay, granite, andesite, gold. That wasn't Silk Touch. Let's try this again. Gold, lapis, redstone, tough, deep slate gold, deep slate lapis, deep slate iron, regular deep slate, oh, deep slate diamond, and deep slate redstone. So that just leaves us with normal diamond, deep slate copper, deep slate coal, and the most rare ore in the game, deep slate emerald. There's the copper and the diamond. Whoa! I just couldn't find this deep slate coal anywhere. I got so desperate I was even searching under the normal coal, until I finally stumbled across some. For the deep slate emeralds, I decided to go back up to the surface and dig down directly through a mountain until I reached deep slate. I did a little strip mining until I ran into a cave, and after a little exploring, I finally found it. Now I just need to use the extra ores I mined to make the full blocks of ore and make all the different deep slate blocks. Before I place them, I'm gonna fill this gap with some of the other random blocks like bricks, grindstone, jukebox, note block, cauldron, azalea, and flowering azalea. And now would probably be a good time to start oxidizing the copper. Let's fill in some more blocks. There's the regular ores, deep slate ores, raw ores. I'm gonna leave a gap here for all the copper blocks. That's the full ore blocks, and finally the deep slate blocks. Now we're headed somewhere dangerous, or at least it was dangerous before I ransacked the place. Speaking of ransacking, and that's the deep dark blocks. While I'm in the area, I'm gonna need some of this. And some of this. Alright, so I've got this shulker full of assorted blocks that need placed, so I just realized that the farmland needs to go at the bottom of the beacon, so I'm swapping it with gravel. Okay, I can't listen to these screams anymore. I'm just gonna place this one at the end. And now there's just 29 blocks remaining. We still need the end blocks, ocean monument blocks, ancient debris, netherite block, beacon, and 3 blocks that are somehow more time consuming to get than all of those. I'm gonna knock the end blocks out first because they're by far the easiest. So I forgot to mark which end gateway I used before I opened all the other ones, but I think it's this one. Yeah, that's the one. Just a quick... And that's it. I'm not doing any shulker boxes because they count as entities and they have a lower render distance than the rest of the blocks on the beacon. Oh my gosh. Now you probably noticed I'm wearing diamond armor. Long story short, I wasn't paying attention to the durability of my netherite armor when I was fighting Enderman last episode, so before I raid an ocean monument, I need to do some enchanting. And to make things easier, I'm going to take this little enchanting setup and move it here. Alright, let's go. That wasn't so bad, and the copper is ready too. Let me just add it to the beacon. Perfect. I'm gonna place all the remaining blocks together after I get the netherite so I can organize them better. I need 1 ancient debris as a block, 4 to make a lodestone, and 36 for the netherite block. I'd also like to get a few extra so I can get my full netherite armor back, so after about 2 hours, I managed to get 59 debris, which was more than enough for the blocks and my armor. And boom, I don't think I've ever had a netherite block before. And there's the lodestone. Time to place all these blocks. It appears I've made another miscalculation. Chorus flower needs to be placed on end stone, so... Crisis averted. Now there are just 5 blocks remaining. There's the beacon, the glass block that will go on top of the beacon, and if you haven't figured it out already, the final 3 blocks are... the frog light blocks. Getting all 3 variants of frog light was a 3-hour process. First I traveled 5,000 blocks to the mangrove swamp, bred a bunch of frogs, and stole their babies. Then I took those babies to 3 different locations of the map and raised them as my own. Once I had all 3 variants of the frogs, I gathered my children together, took them to the basalt delta in the nether, where I fed them the baby magma cubes. Let me just place these down. Cool, and the final block is the beacon itself. For some reason, the audio for this recording went missing, but I've recreated it to the best of my abilities. I used the skulls to fight 2 withers, crafted the beacon, and here we have it, the final blocks. I'll place the shrieker down first. It's not like you guys can hear it anyways. Now the beacon, and the glass block on top of it. I think this actually lined up perfectly above where my mine is, so haste 2 would be perfect. Totally planned that. And I really like how this build turned out. I guess the only thing left to do now is just... Today, I'm gonna share my journey surviving 500 days in hardcore Minecraft. I've already taken on some big projects in this series, but this video proved to be the biggest test of my dedication. The main goals for this episode: finish all the builds I had planned for the village and complete every single advancement before day 500. We left off around day 350, and after finishing the beacon, I decided it was finally time to start working on some builds in the village. After a quick peek at the planning board and some testing in a super flat world, it was time to get to work. Having just murdered 21,000 Endermen, I thought it might be a good idea to start with the church so I could confess my sins. By day 355, the church was complete, and that night, I publicly apologized to everyone who would listen. For the next few days, I gathered all the materials I would need for the library into 2 shulkers, and then left one on the ground to despawn for an added challenge. Having no replacements, it was time to pay a visit to my old friends in the end. With my shelves restocked, I got all the materials again and began working on the village library. This build ended up being a little bigger than I intended, and it even overhangs the wall a bit, but that just meant I had more space inside. And more space inside meant more space for bookshelves. And more space for bookshelves meant more books. And more books meant... On day 368, I decided it was time to make a new mine within the village walls. Yes, I already had a mine not far from the village, but it wasn't exactly my favorite build. And as for functionality, mining in waist-high waters isn't what I had in mind when I built this place. So I built a much better one, this time in the side of a hill which felt way more natural. I decided it would make the most sense to have the mine lead directly to the blacksmith, so that's what I worked on next. The blacksmith ended up being my favorite build in the village, and not because it was the nicest looking build. You see, it's not what's on the outside that matters most, but on the inside. Up until this point, I'd been smelting most of my items manually using my off-brand super smelter, but it was time for an upgrade. I built a real super smelter under the blacksmith, attaching the input to the campfires and the output to the water next to the anvil. So anytime I need something smelted, I can toss it into the fire, and within a minute, smelted items will begin to pop up and go into this barrel. With the blacksmith complete, I spent the next 15 days adding some smaller details that really just brought this place to life. I built some docks, market stalls, a graveyard, connected all the paths, added a well, bushes, a wheat field, and a custom tree. For the last build, I wanted to see if I could squeeze a small sugarcane farm into the attic of the library, and it worked. But it also didn't. The farm fit okay, but it wasn't big enough to give me the paper supply I needed on its own. Nonetheless, I decided I'd keep it. Day 399, the village was complete, and I'm really proud of how this place turned out. I've never built anything like it before, and it's cool to look back at what it used to look like before I showed up. But there was no time to reminisce. I only had 101 more days to finish all the advancements, which sounds like a lot, but let's just say I made a few mistakes that really set me back along the way. I decided to start things off with the adventuring time achievement, since I only had 4 biomes left to discover. I poked around the save file a bit and found that those 4 biomes were the windswept forest, windswept gravelly hills, wooded badlands plateau, and stony peaks. I found the gravel hills quite easily next to my deep dark biome, but after 40 minutes of aimlessly flying around and playing matchmaker, I finally gave in and decided to use chunk base. After all, who is Dora without the map? Definitely not an explorer. So, using chunk base, I completed the rest of the biomes in no time at all, and I even knocked out some of the breeding along the way. I made it back on day 402, and for the next 2 advancements, I needed to summon my inner Robin Hood. To complete Sniper Duel, I needed to kill a skeleton from at least 50 blocks away. And for Bullseye, I needed to hit the bullseye from at least 30 blocks away. Easy. I then remembered the wise words of my grandfather. To become as light as a rabbit, you must first find a cow and stab it. These next few were pretty easy, so wax on, wax off. New crossbow. Can I hit this water bucket? No. 2 birds, 1 arrow. Sound of music. This time? Still no. Returning home on day 405, I was greeted by a new face. One of the cat variety, and since it was already locked in my basement, I decided to tame it. After that, I crafted up a trusty spyglass and went back to adventuring. I bred some turtles along the way and waited patiently to see the baby, before realizing that turtles lay eggs, and well, I didn't have that kind of patience. Hey, is that a bird? Yep. Is that a balloon? Sort of. Is that an advancement that requires me to respawn the Ender Dragon in my transformed end dimension? Yeah, so basically I'm an idiot. I completely forgot this advancement existed, and the only way for me to complete it without ruining my end dimension is to take the pillars down manually and rebuild them after. Knowing that one was going to take several grueling hours, I decided to put it at the end of my list, and what better way to relieve some stress than killing some mobs. After killing the zombified hoglin and a silverfish, the final mob I needed was the Ravager. So I made my way to the raid farm, played matchmaker, killed my first Ravager, and just like that, the monsters were hunted. Day 407, I decided it was time to take on the Star Trader advancement, which meant I had to get a villager up to the height limit and trade with him. I spent the next 15 minutes building a giant water elevator, while wondering why this was an advancement in the first place. While waiting for the villagers to wake up, I got myself into a sticky situation. Day 409, I sent a farmer to space and bought his bread. Sadly, the platform wasn't big enough for the both of us, so he sacrificed himself so I could live on. A true hero. I used sand to remove the... Now the only advancements I had left in the adventure tab were to spyglass the ender dragon and strike a villager with lightning. I already decided to save the ender dragon for last, and the villagers would just have to wait until the next thunderstorm. So it was time to move on to the husbandry tab. And what better way to start it than a relaxing fishing trip with my favorite mobs and catching my first fish. I then proceeded to catch some more fish so I could tame all the cat variants. Day 410, I had all the fish I needed for the cats and knocked out another quick advancement. I gathered a shulker of supplies so I could breed some animals while searching for the cats and set off on my journey. I spent the next 4 days flying from village to village playing matchmaker and taming every new cat I could find. Day 413, I checked a few more villages, found some stuff I needed to breed axolotls, and had tamed every single cat in the game except for the black cat. I continued looking until day 415, when I stopped at home to regain my sanity. If I had to describe my mental state with one clip, I think this one would suffice. Needless to say, I needed a break, so I took a minute to clear my head, and that's when I had a true big brain moment. The black cat happens to be the only variant in the game that has a 100% chance to spawn at a specific location: witch huts. With my motivation renewed, I took a trip to the nearest swamp, found a witch hut, stole her cat, and completed the advancement. After returning the cat to my nether portal, I decided to look for pandas and ocelots for the breeding advancement. It wasn't long at all before I found a pair of pandas hanging out in the bamboo forest. And captured a pair of ocelots too. With those out of the way, there were only 6 more animals left to breed. There were llamas, donkeys, axolotls, mushroom cows, hoglins, and striders. And while on the topic of striders, I decided it would be a good time to complete the other 2 advancements too. The first one was easy, but for the second one, I had to recreate a lava lake in the overworld. Now, according to Minecraft, this qualifies as a lake. Just don't question it. Day 420 was lit. I finally put the all blocks beacon to use and finished the respawn anchor and lodestone advancements. Day 421, I began working on the other husbandry advancements. I think I was still recovering from day 420 though, because all I remember is going on a crazy ride with a unicorn or something. Day 422, I got a little hungry and ordered one of everything. Next, I wanted to complete Uneasy Alliance. Well, I guess I didn't really want to, but it needed to be done. I followed an easy tutorial by Guggle that would allow me to trap a ghast and move it to the overworld. But I clearly didn't pay attention because this is a nether waste biome and it was supposed to be built in a soul sand valley. With the trap rebuilt, all I had to do was wait. It took a lot of convincing to get the first ghast into the minecart, but when I finally did, I quickly learned that there wasn't enough room on the other side of the portal. So I cleared out a bigger area, waited for another ghast, and this time everything went according to plan. To be blunt, this next one was painful. I've never attempted to complete the How Did We Get Here advancement, but there are several hours worth of preparation needed before you can attempt it, and if you make a mistake, well... For those of you who don't know, How Did We Get Here requires the player to have every effect active at the same time. I started off by brewing all the potions I would need, and then realized I needed 3 more Nautilus shells for the conduit. So it was finally time to break out the old fishing rod. But first, I had to make it. Day 431, I returned home with my new rod, and decided I wasn't going to stop fishing until I had all the shells. And on day 434, I finally had them. With the conduit crafted, the next step was to get a full beacon for all 6 effects. That way I wouldn't need as many potions. While farming the wither for the last beacon, a small family of chickens were caught in the crossfire. Unfortunate. For them at least. Upon returning home, I realized it was raining, so I decided to wait a few minutes to see if it would turn into a thunderstorm, and sure enough, I grabbed my fork and raced to the neighboring village to transform this villager into a villagette. Things were looking very promising. It was only day 436 and I had just 2 advancements remaining, plus a few hidden ones that we'll get into later, but I had no idea what was to come. In 1.19 you need the new darkness effect, which can only be gotten from a naturally generated shrieker, so I had no choice but to do it in the deep dark. I found a spot with a shrieker, isolated it, and cleared some space around it. Then I placed down the beacon, set up the conduit, and went to the end.
Nope.
Why the end? Well, one of the effects needed for How Did We Get Here is the levitation effect, which you get from shulkers. So it was time to kidnap one. As fun as that sounds, it was not. First, I needed to find an end city that had an end gateway nearby. That way I wouldn't have to transport the shulker too far. The plan was to trap the shulker in a boat and use my fishing rod to pull it around. The first attempt didn't go so bad. I got it into the gateway, repaired my fishing rod, made some healing potions in case it does that. Attempt 2. This time I decided to use rails and minecarts to make things easier, which could also be reused if something went wrong. See, I completely forgot that putting a boat into a minecart generates infinite momentum.
Bye, have a great time.
A silly miscalculation on my part. My physics teacher would be so disappointed. To fix it, I needed to add something with infinite stopping power. A wall. This time, I got it. And I wasn't taking any chances. Shout out to my froggy friend here for being with me during these trying times. Feeling prepared, I sent the shulker through to the overworld, then the nether, and then the deep dark. It was now day 446. That part took about 2 hours, but I wasn't done yet. I also needed the Dolphin's Grace effect, which meant I had to move a dolphin from the ocean, through the nether, and over to the deep dark. It ended up being surprisingly easy. I set up the holding cell, kidnapped the dolphin, locked it in place, and gave it a fitting name. I now had everything I needed to give it a try. I finished a raid for Hero of the Village, got Bad Omen, got Spoon, prepared my inventory, rewatched the tutorial a couple times, and yeah, this is just embarrassing. I completely forgot about the shulker step, ate the pufferfish early, which made it seem like the arrows were missing, and summoned the warden. Now, I prepared an escape tunnel, so I was fine, but as for my shulker and dolphin friends, not so much. Short of dying, this couldn't have gone worse, but giving up was not an option. Partly because this is sort of like my job now, but also because I had to redeem myself after that complete embarrassment. I may have lost just about everything, but what I gained was knowledge, and what took me 10 days to complete the first time, I finished in just 6 this time. I even got the shulker to duplicate itself and added Ilmango's warden switch to make sure my friends were safe. How thoughtful of me. Day 457, everything was ready. I activated the warden switch, popped the potions, ate the apple, remembered the shulker part, but didn't realize I was crouched when I tried to hop into the water. It was still recoverable, but I guess Finn was still upset about Just Keep Swimming's brutal death because he wouldn't give me Dolphin's Grace. Frustrating, but not nearly as much of a setback since my friends were still intact. For the sake of not showing the same process 4 times and embarrassing myself even more, I'll make the rest of this story a little faster. Day 458, I got all the potions and found a brown panda while looking for an ancient city. Day 461, I found said ancient city and looted it until day 450. Day 461, I found said ancient city and looted it until day 462, when I found the notch apples that I needed, which I later learned weren't needed because the beacon was already giving me the resistance effect. Day 464, I almost got Dan TDM'd, and I quickly learned why you don't give the witches time to heal the evokers. A close call, but not close enough. Death rained down from above, and I got Special Emerald, Angry Axeman, and Spoon. That night, I was ready for attempt 3, or at least I thought I was. I even acted out what I was supposed to do in my head first. Twice. But what I didn't know is that this attempt was a fail before I even popped the first potion, because I wasn't hungry enough to eat the pufferfish. At this point, my madness turned to sadness. I removed my pants, but all was not lost. I knew that I had the steps memorized, and on day 467, with pure determination, I did it. I now knew how I got here, but I still had places to go. Remember those hidden advancements I mentioned? There are 3 in total. The first is Arbalistic. To complete that, I needed to kill 5 different kinds of mobs with a single crossbow shot. So, on day 468, I gathered up some animals, and well, there's no way to soften the blow of this one here, but I sent them to heaven. Good thing I built that church. The last hidden advancements were both related to LAs. See what I did? For You've Got a Friend in Me, I played fetch with the LA using some dirt. Difficult stuff. For Birthday Song, the LA needs to drop a cake next to a note block. But this is a jukebox. Be right back. Okay, happy birthday, I guess. And that's every advancement except for the one I've been saving for last. This one is just pain. It's like the saying, you've made your bed, now lie in it. Except instead of a bed, it's a project that took a week long to complete, and instead of laying in it, I have to destroy it. And destroy it I did, but not before using a very useful feature from the mod Lightmatica. Lightmatica allows you to save holographic schematics of your builds that show exactly where to place blocks. By using it, I could make sure that my end island would look exactly the same after I rebuilt it. Days 472 to 476, I removed all the blocks I used to make the candles and stored them in chests in the stronghold. Then I removed the candle holders, and on day 479 it was time to respawn the dragon. Watching those obsidian pillars regenerate hurted a little. In order to stop the dragon from flying through and breaking the skulk and middle tower, I used a simple trick with water to hold it in place. I sniped the crystals and waited a few minutes. The dragon flew right into the trap, and I made sure to get the advancement before Yeah, I guess I got so caught up in killing the dragon that I forgot why I respawned it in the first place, but eventually the realization settled in. Oh my god. So I did it again, this time making sure I got the advancement. And there it was, all the advancements completed in my hardcore world. But there were still 20 days left until 500. In that time, I wanted to make sure that I left the end island exactly how it was before the episode. I spent 3 hours mining the obsidian pillars to slim them down, taking us to day 489 where I began rebuilding the candles. By day 496, the end was back to normal. I gathered up my 2.5 shulkers of obsidian, repaired my gear, and learned that obsidian is my 3rd most mined block. Day 497, I had important matters to settle. You see, Travis asked if I'd name a villager Mr. Beast in the last episode, so here it is. Everyone, meet Mr. Beast the Priest. Going forward, I'd like to do names like this in all my videos. So if you have any name suggestions for items, tools, or mobs, leave them in the comments and I'll pick a few of my favorites each episode. For the last few days, I tried to add the chunk loader to the warden switch so it would be active no matter where I was on the map. But for some reason, the timing for activating the shrieker was wrong and wardens were still spawning. So I began designing a timer of my own, but that's going to need to be finished later because I'm bad at redstone. It's day 500, and I'm running out of time. I have a problem. You see, I like big builds, but taking on big builds requires a lot of blocks. And getting a lot of blocks takes a lot of time. And time is limited. So in this video, I'm going to invest my time wisely and create 10 must-have farms that will automatically gather blocks for me. Starting with this simple smoothstone farm, which I've conveniently built inside my mine. Despite popular belief, smoothstone isn't actually the most interesting thing to farm. I mean, it's stone. But it's an essential component in repeaters and comparators, which I'm going to need a lot of for the more complex farms in this video. Smoothstone is also great because you can use it to make stone bricks, which are totally not overused at all. Next up is a shulker shell farm. I've had to go on trips to the end to hunt for shulkers in almost every episode so far. And as much as I love floating around like a little kid's lost balloon, I would be perfectly fine never having to do it again. I'm going to need a lot of shulker boxes for the upcoming farms in this video, so let's get started. For the more ugly farms like this one, I'm going to be building them in this desert near my mob grinder. Okay, I lied. I forgot this farm requires snowmen, and, understandably, snowmen aren't too fond of the desert, so there's no way this is going to work, man. Instead, I'm just going to build it a few hundred blocks away at the edge of the jungle biome, a much more suitable climate for snowmen, I guess. Now that the farm is built, I need to get the first shulker in here to start it. Luckily, I still have an extra one trapped on the nether ceiling from getting the How Did We Get Here advancement last episode, so all I have to do is... Perfect. Now if I can just get it to go through the portal, it should teleport into the farm. Now it should be somewhere... Nice. Now that it's in, all I have to do is turn on the farm. All I have to do is turn on the farm. And it looks like it's working, but there's one more thing I have to do. First, I need more rockets. If only I had a farm for this. Now, where were we? Shulkers are one of the few mobs that don't despawn when the player leaves the area, so if I build a chunk loader near the farm, it should stay active 24/7. After running the farm for some shells, I began gathering the materials for the next farm, for arguably the most important resource in the game, wood. Now the previous two farms were quite simple, but not this one, because I'm not going to just build any old wood farm. I'm going to be building the Menace, another tree farm that produces 80,000 logs per hour. But first, I need more redstone, and some slime. If only I had a farm for those too. With the materials ready, I decided to build it on the edge of the desert bordering the mesa biome. I swapped out the standard item sorters for shulker loaders, and yeah, this thing definitely looks menacing. But as usual, there's a problem. Two, actually. This farm uses 5.5 bone meal and 4 fungi every second. For the fungis, I'm going to make a mini farm under the Menace for those.
Nice.
And the bone meal, I can get by using bones from my mob grinder. Or at least, enough to run the farm for a few minutes at a time. And with the farm loaded up, I'm finally ready to give this thing a test run. And this thing is insane. In the few minutes I was able to run it, most of the shulkers were about half full, giving me plenty of logs. Now, what's green? Very valuable and doesn't grow on trees. Emeralds. For the last 500 days, I've been trading wool for my emeralds. And while it's not the worst way of becoming rich, it certainly isn't the fastest. And why spend time shearing sheep when you can build a blue wooden skyscraper that generates stacks of that green stuff in mere seconds? This is a stacking raid farm. And the only thing left to do now is bring in the tenants, disrespect a neighboring tribe, and start smacking this stickman. And after 4 in-game days of farming, I've got unlimited emeralds and enough redstone to last the entire episode. With my redstone shortage finally solved, it's time for the next question. What's green, sticky, and doesn't grow on its slime farm time? The materials are fairly easy, but instead of using something like stone bricks, I'm switching it up and using tiled deep slate. I want to be able to see what's going on in the farm, so I'll need a bunch of amethyst shards for tinted glass. I'll also need lots of brown mushrooms. I'll explain later. For the farm itself, I actually used my brain and combined 2 existing designs into one. Thanks to the 1.19 update, it's now possible to build a slime-only farm on the surface of a swamp biome. I decided to go with Ilmango's design for the spawning platform, using the low light levels of brown mushrooms to prevent all spawns except for slimes. But instead of using campfires for the killing chamber, I used a different design based on ENXO4's looting slime farm. So, instead of being slow roasted over a fire, the slimes are transported into the nether... into the nether, boiled in lava, and sent back to the overworld to the AFK spot, where I can dice them up into bite-sized pieces with my looting 3 sword for extra servings. Yum. But why just stop at 1 sticky block when you can have 2? Collecting honey by hand is such a buzzkill, and when bees have freedom to fly around and be free, they get distracted, and it takes even longer. I just can't be bothered. So it's time for a honey farm. That should be all the material. Wait. Something's missing. It starts with B. Oh yeah, bees. I spent the next 20 minutes collecting all the bee nests I could find, which was 9. But I needed 16 full beehives, so, like any sane person would do, I made a bee breeding dungeon under my library. Just a few escaped bees, and an hour and a half later, we were in business. I also learned that the bees in the nether don't sleep, so they produce more honey. Interesting. But that's enough droning on, let's get building. Now, you might not think this is the most beautiful farm, but beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I released the bees, had a quick housewarming party, and added the glass bottles to complete the farm. And with this chunk loader on, this thing should run 24/7. Now, I've gotta say, I'm quite buzzed to be done with this one. Next up, we're going back to the basics. Sort of. I want a sugarcane farm, but those require lots of observers and pistons, which require a lot of cobblestone, which I don't have. So I need a cobblestone farm. Now, you might be wondering, can't you just use the smoothstone farm with a non-silk touch pickaxe? And to that, I say, yes. But no. See, with cobblestone farms, you can use TNT instead of mining manually, which means way more efficient farms. How much more efficient? That much more efficient. It only makes sense to build this thing right across from the smoothstone farm. This design had a lot of layers, and when it was finally done, I turned it on, and everything seemed to be working fine. That is, until I went down to the collection system. Or what was left of it. It turns out I must have messed up a layer, because the first few TNT did this. So I patched up the farm, turned it back on, and this time it didn't self-destruct. And after a few minutes of letting it run, I had more than enough cobble for the rest of the farms. Now, last episode I built a mini sugarcane farm in the attic of the library, but it's way too slow, and it's probably not a good idea to have water dripping down onto the books. So this time I'm building a much bigger farm under the library. Since this farm will never be seen, it only makes sense to take the extra time to make it look nice. So I went with a dark theme, bringing in basalt, deep slate, and blackstone variants, and adding frog lights for, well, light. The farm itself is pretty standard, but for the collection system, the sugarcane is gathered at the middle of the farm, where a dropper sends it up a bubble column to chests behind the main desk in the library. And now I can finally fix that leaky ceiling. That was the 8th farm, and if my math is correct, that means there's just 2 more. At this point, I've already got farms for all the major materials needed in redstone components. All except one. Quartz. Quartz is needed for comparators and observers, which are used in almost every farm, and after using thousands of quartz in my end transformation video, I'm pretty tired of getting it manually. But in order to farm quartz, I need a bartering farm, and there's no sense in building a bartering farm without a proper gold supply. So I'll be using this design by Dashpum, which produces over 1,000 gold blocks per hour, but building it requires 10,000 magma blocks, thousands of glass blocks, about 600 obsidian, and quite a few turtle eggs. Not exactly the simplest build, but it'll definitely be worth it. Getting the magma blocks went exactly how you'd expect. I entered the nether with 2 full durability pickaxes and 6 empty shulkers, and after an hour and a half, some banged up pickaxes, and permanent burns on my feet, I had filled all 6 shulkers. After that, I used the emeralds from the raid farm to buy glass from my librarians, which got me half a shulker per day, and after a few days, I had enough. The obsidian was easy, as it should be, since I still have thousands of it from mining the obsidian pillars. All that's left now is the turtle eggs. I found a few turtles near the jungle, but it took an hour for me to realize that turtles can instantly be bred again after laying an egg. So I built an actual breeding pen, and after another hour, I was ready. The gold farm uses a bunch of spawning platforms made of magma blocks, with portals in the middle. The piglins are attracted to the turtle eggs, and enter the portals, traveling to the overworld, where they take some fall damage and are sent back to the nether to this top portal, where they're killed by my looting 3 sword. And to make it unique, I decided to mix things up and go with a pink theme for this farm. But I noticed something very odd when I finished building it. I had somehow built a baby piglin farm. I assumed this meant something was wrong with the overworld side. And, turns out I had a row of slabs blocking the top portal. With those removed, the farm was working perfectly, allowing piglins of all sizes to join the fun. After half an hour of AFKing, I gathered a shulker of ingots, which will be plenty to get the bartering farm started. The bartering farm I've chose is very compact, but you need a carved pumpkin for each piglin to keep them from despawning. And I don't have a pumpkin farm yet, so... With that sorted, it was time to get to work. I purposely built the gold farm near the edge of a crimson forest, so I could build the bartering farm right next to it. I just need a way down. There we go. The bartering farm is made up of 2 main parts, a shulker loader, and a room for the piglins to spawn. Now I just need to pillar up a bit and wait. After some time passed, I had realized I'd made a mistake. The piglins are supposed to be in these scaffolding blocks, not on them, which is probably why I have these extra blocks. With that fixed, I AFK'd some more, fixed another mistake, and AFK'd some more, until all the piglins were ready. To use it, I just toss the gold into here, face the other way, and load everything into these shulker boxes, which are automatically replaced with empty ones when they're full. And after that shulker of gold, I've got quite the variety of loot here. Oh yeah, almost forgot. And now that I have all these farms producing all these blocks, what should I do with them? I built the ultimate pumpkin farm in hardcore Minecraft, a farm so big that it broke the game's sound. The final product took more than 50 hours to complete and holds nearly 16,000 pumpkin stems that produce over 65,000 pumpkins per hour. And, believe it or not, by the end of the video, I actually find a use for all those pumpkins. Now, to build something of this scale, I'm going to need a lot of blocks. The most obvious one is orange concrete, which shouldn't be too difficult since I only need 27,000 of it. I think the only viable method of getting that much concrete without going insane is building one of these. This is a sand duper. As demonstrated, it throws sand blocks at the end portal, causing clones of the blocks to appear in the end dimension, just as the devs intended. Now, I could just stand here and collect it by hand, but why not take this a step further and create a collection system that loads all the blocks into shulker boxes for me. And with that complete, all I have to do is change out the sand for orange concrete powder. And we should have that 27,000 concrete in no time. Oh, wait. That's not supposed to happen. Alright, take 2. I replaced the waterlogged slabs with waterlogged signs, which should stop the powder from concreting, which is a word apparently. And now I can just turn the slabs into full blocks. Spooky. Now that everything's working properly, this thing should be making 72,000 concrete powder an hour, which is more than double what I need for the pumpkin, so... I AFK'd for a bit longer than I was planning, but now I have lots and lots and lots of extra concrete. I mean, who knows, maybe I'll end up needing it. Okay, remember when I accidentally turned some of the powder into concrete? Now I need to do that to all 27,000 of the concrete powder, but on purpose. And thankfully, there's a mostly painless way to do that as well. Emphasis on the mostly. This is a concrete converter, and you'll never guess what it does. It relies on pistons that push and pull the stairs that turn the powder into. T-dupers are positioned over the collection distance from the blast chamber blocks to the hoppers. Just look at all those hoppers. That is a lot of hoppers. It converts powder into concrete. And, like I said, this process was mostly painless. I definitely didn't struggle to find a way to place the powder fast enough and mess up a water stream that caused half of the concrete to despawn. Nope. But, in a scenario where that did happen, the extra concrete powder would have been very helpful. Just a quick deforestation session for the stem. And it's time to get this party started. And by party, I mean pumpkin. Since the pumpkin farm also serves as a lag machine, I'd like to place it in a remote location that I don't plan on visiting. Somewhere like Fatu Eva, or maybe the Savannah biome. Yeah, this'll do. Credit to BFMCG on Planet Minecraft because without a reference, this build would have been next to impossible. The full pumpkin took over 4 hours to complete, and the funny thing is, that wasn't even half the total blocks I used in this project. It was the inside of the pumpkin that turned out to be the most time consuming. But before I can get to that part, I first have to carve it. And light it. Nice. Now that we've got this massive pumpkin, it's time to start filling it with the actual pumpkin farm. But there's a problem. I need 32,000 dirt. I do have a bit of a head start though. Between carving and lighting the pumpkins, I enchanted 9 maxed out diamond shovels that should do the trick. Now the dirt. I'm going to get it from flattening out my spawn chunks, since there's a good chance I'll end up building something in this area in a future video. Over the next few hours, I managed to collect 20 shulkers of dirt, which was more than enough for the farm. However, dirt wasn't the only resource I didn't have enough of. I also need a bunch of glowstone, because apparently, plants need light to grow. If I just fire up my raid farm for a while, I should be able to get all the glowstone and some redstone that will come in handy too. And with the glowstone and redstone crafted, I'll gather up all the other materials like glass, wood, iron, terracotta, redstone dust, slime blocks, honey blocks, iron bars, observers, sticky pistons, obsidian, and a whole bunch of other blocks. And you can't plant 16,000 pumpkins without 16,000 pumpkin seeds. So now that's nowhere near 16,000, but it's enough to get me started. Speaking of getting started, it's time to build the first layer of the farm. And while I'm doing that, I'll share a quick rundown of what my plan is. The farm is going to consist of 8 of these layers, each having a 64 by 64 field of dirt with glowstone and water so the pumpkins can grow. Half of that dirt will be turned into farmland so I can plant the seeds. And speaking of seeds, I'm already out. But if I get this first layer working, it should give me enough pumpkins for the rest of the seeds while I'm working on the other 7 layers. So I'll set up a super advanced collection system and then the flying machines to get this thing started. Okay, that's not good. That was kind of like one of those superhero landing on the hood of the car scenes where they do the... Anyways, I just realized that I completely forgot about the hopper minecarts. Each layer needs 32 of them. So that's 256 total, which is 2,560 ingots. And I have not that much. So there. Now the iron farm will continue producing iron while I work on the pumpkin farm. And for now, I'll use what I have to make enough minecarts for the first 2 flying machines. Place them in. And now my favorite part. Now, I've just added this simple redstone circuit that should launch both the machines. Which will travel back and forth collecting all the pumpkins in the minecarts and depositing them in the hopper line. That goes to the auto droppers, that goes to the water, that goes to the collection system, that goes to me. And that's the basics of how this farm will work. I just gotta build all this 7 more times, starting with 28,000 blocks of dirt, which might not look like much when stacked on top of each other, but if you spread it out. After too many hours of asking myself why I couldn't build a normal pumpkin farm like a normal person, I finally finished all the layers. But I couldn't get too excited. I still had to turn half the dirt into farmland. I lost 9 hoes that day. And then it was seeding time. Now, if I was smart, which clearly, I would have held the seeds in my offhand while tilling the dirt. But since I didn't, this part took another 1.5 hours. And with the seeds done, the fields are now ready. Right? Well, it turns out that the pumpkins need more light than I thought, which is why this pumpkin patch is so patchy. But for now, I'm going to save that problem for future me and work on the redstone and flying machines. For the final version of the farm, that simple circuit I built at the beginning wasn't going to cut it. Like I said before, this farm causes a bit of lag. Even without the machines running, my game sound was already broken. So I wanted a way to activate the flying machine 2 layers at a time. After watching some old mumbo jumbo tutorials, I tried putting 2 circuits called T flip-flops together, and it actually worked. When the flying machines start, the first flip-flop is activated, and when they return, the second one is activated, which changes the lamp on or off. The change in the lamp sends a signal to the next 2 layers, and the process repeats. When it gets to the top, the signal is sent through the observers back down to the bottom, and it starts over. And now that everything is working perfect, it's time to solve that lighting problem. Right now, there's not enough light, so if I just get some more and place it down, problem solved. There's one key part to this farm that's still missing, and that's the collection system. Sadly, this little hopper isn't going to be able to handle the drops alone. So I built a new collection system that can get the job done. Now, you might have noticed the composters already. Basically, I don't really need pumpkins.
You what?
But on the off chance that I do need a few for some reason, I'll have 55,000 pumpkins stored in these double chests just in case. When those chests are full, the rest of the pumpkins will be turned into bone meal, which I actually do need. Now it's time to put this thing to the test to see how many pumpkins it actually produces. So I'll just let the farm do a full cycle, then count the pumpkins I get when 2 layers are harvested. That's 1,209 pumpkins, which means that all 8 layers together would produce about 4,800 pumpkins per cycle. Each cycle takes about 4 minutes and 27 seconds, which is about 13.5 cycles per hour, giving us a grand total of roughly 65,000 pumpkins per hour. That's a lot of pumpkins. When converted to bone meal, that's about 6,000 bone meal per hour, which is pretty bad considering moss farms exist. But do I regret anything? Oh yeah, this is Steve. He lives here now. And did you guys know that melons produce 5 times more bone meal than pumpkin? Wait, I built a modern mansion in hardcore Minecraft. Actually, let's try something new. 742 days. That's how long I've been living in this cramped, musty basement. It wasn't always like this. I used to have a small cottage home that I stole, or rather, inherited, from the villager that owned it before me. But then, the sheep came. They were evil, relentless creatures, but I did what I could, trapping them in a pen. But in the process, my home was lost. I sought refuge in the only place I could, the old cellar of a nearby building. I had to make the most of what little space I had, lining the walls with chests and barrels to hold all my possessions. At that moment, I didn't have many, but over time, the world around me expanded, and so did my wealth. I constructed farms of all shapes and sizes across the land, some proving to be more useful than others, but each contributed to my now overwhelming amount of items. My ender chest, filled with shulker boxes. My barrels, shulker boxes. Even my floor is made of shulker boxes. I can't keep living like this. But if everything goes according to plan, I won't have to. So what is my plan? You see, there's this rich real estate guy on YouTube who's doing a live tour of this fancy modern mansion today. It'll tell you everything you need to know, and while you guys are getting caught up, I'm going to work on finding a way to befriend these sheep. Nice sheepy. Welcome back everyone, I'm Rich Real Estate Guy. The building you see behind me is a brand new modern mansion. It has 27 rooms, a 4-car garage, a tennis court, and 2 swimming pools. It was constructed on a beautiful 16,000 square block lot along the coast of this stunning ocean. The construction was completed in 200 days by a solo master builder who has chosen to remain anonymous. When asked why, the builder said, quote, "Everything is awesome," before wandering off. An interesting character, but that's more than enough background information. Let's begin our tour. So, starting with the exterior here, the property is surrounded by a white concrete and glass wall, perfect for keeping out sheep and sheeple. The main gate opens up to a massive parking lot that branches off to a pedestrian pickup drop-off location along the main walkway. The walkway, surrounded by beautiful azalea bushes, splits off, one path wrapping around the side of the mansion and the other to our main entrance here. Approaching the entrance, there are 2 fountains on either side of the walkway and a covered porch area with outdoor seating. Now let's head inside. Going through the oversized sliding glass door, we enter our foyer. Foyer? Take your pick. It's a double tall room open to the 2nd floor above, with dark oak plank cutouts on the ceiling. Our main feature in this room is the netherite powered fireplace, set into the wall. It's surrounded by white couches and makes for a relaxing lounge area, complete with a winding bookshelf made of deep slate tile. Moving on through here, we enter our main hall that spans from the front of the mansion all the way to the back. To the left, we have our main staircase, and a perfect elevator. Don't question it. To our right, we see the main dining area, with a quartz dining table on a slab of the finest smooth basalt, and a raised ceiling with hanging lighting. Quartz is an excellent material for seating because it's harder than steel. Off to the side, we have our bar, for juice. It's a juice bar. Before moving on, we'll take a quick look into this doorway, which leads to another foyer between our garage and main walkway. This one with a comfy corner couch and stained glass coffee table facing a painting. It's not a flat screen TV. Or is it? Moving into the garage, you'll see some rich guy cars, and coming over to the garage doors, I'll demonstrate that they're fully functional. Just like me. Let's head back through the dining area and into our kitchen. In the kitchen, we'll find additional seating with a window view of the ocean. The charcoal gray kitchen counters are nicely complemented by the stripped dark oak backdrop and chocolate bar cabinets. Through these doors is our walk-in freezer, aka the meat closet. Not to be confused with the meeting closet, which may or may not exist. In the corner of this room, another door takes you to our first spare room. Turns out, 27 rooms was too many for the master builder to fill, but it's always nice to have that extra space in case you need it. Going back through our kitchen and through the back door, we step out onto the patio. And the view here is just amazing. In front of us is the swimming pool, with integrated frog lights and nothing but a layer of glass separating it from the ocean. In the center of the pool, we have our outdoor fireplace, a really unique feature. Stepping back inside, we'll come back through our dining room and into our grand room. This area here is the outer grand room. It's a double tall room that's visible from the 2nd floor. It serves as our entrance to the inner grand room, where our glass floor leads us to our home theater. What's it gonna be, you heartless balls of fluff? Cake? Apples? Mutton? You like probably mutton? Should have turned that off. Anyways, on either side of our TV, we have waterfalls flowing down into the floor that add a nice touch to the otherwise minimalistic room. Passing through the dining room for a final time, we'll venture down this hallway here. On our right is a secondary staircase leading up to the 2nd floor. Ignoring that for now, we'll move into the next room, which is the juice making room. And, well, need I explain? Next up, we have a smaller outdoor area, which again overlooks the ocean, a perfect place to stop for a bit of fresh air. Further down the hallway and to our right, we'll find 4 guest rooms, each having a nearly identical arrangement with a sleek modern bed, coral carpet, a painting, and a spacious bathroom. And not to forget, the potted azalea tree adds a unique touch of life to each room. Rounding the corner here, our hallway opens up to our second entrance, and outside, an expansive cobbled deep slate terrace with outdoor seating. This is where the pathway we saw earlier leads to. Going back inside, directly in front of us is our indoor gym, fully kitted with a bench press, exercise mats, a punching bag, and a treadmill. I'd demonstrate, but I already got my workout in this morning. The hallway wraps around to the other side, where we have our second wing of guest rooms, with the same setup as the other ones, so no need to waste our time touring those. Moving along, a second patio oversees the front yard, and we've returned to our main hallway. We'll go ahead and take the elevator up to the second floor. Not sure if that would pass a safety inspection, but at least the obsidian is there to catch you if you fall. Obsidian is actually softer than quartz, so it's surprisingly good at breaking your fall, and the occasional leg. Anyway, on our right, the stairs continue spiraling up to the rooftop, and a glass railing allows us to peer down at the foyer below us without falling to our death. A nice touch. Moving on, we enter our entertainment room, which has a pool table, fancy shelves, a cool bookcase, and a television. What about wheat? Oh, now we're in business. Sorry about that. Just outside, we have our balcony overlooking the pool and the ocean, and just look at that sunset view. Back inside and through this door, we have the master bedroom, with a raised ceiling, a king-size bed, with a headboard that spans the entire wall. On the other side of the room, another lounge area. On the side opposite of where we came in, the room opens up to another hallway, and another balcony with views of the parking lot below. Down this side of the hallway, we'll find 2 rooms. One a spare room, and the other was the master builder's storage room. On the other end, we'll find another spare room and our bathroom. In the corner sits a smooth quartz jacuzzi tub, a bath mat, smooth quartz countertop, and sink. You didn't see anything. And nothing quite says I'm rich like relieving yourself into a toilet made of solid gold. Flush is nice too. Moving back out toward the elevator, we'll find a hallway that wraps around the outer grand room below. Again, a glass railing for safety reasons. On one side, we have our second staircase we saw earlier, and next to that, our final spare room. On the other side, we have another balcony and a hallway leading to our trophy room, with froglight lit display cases for anything we might want to show off. Kind of like a personal museum of sorts. On the floor, a glowstone arrangement surrounded by a royal red carpet, and on the ceiling, the most unique feature, space for a massive 8x8 map. Using level 3 maps here will display a 64 million block area, and this tiny dot here is what the mansion would look like. 2 sliding glass doors lead us to a larger terrace above the second entrance. And now it's time for the roof. I'll opt for the stairs this time, because I happen to like my legs intact. A glass wall encases one side of the staircase, extending nearly the entire height of the mansion. At the top of the stairs, we have a small foyer and a sliding glass door that leads outside. To our right are some lounge chairs that are as soft as snow. And to our left, some umbrella-shaded tables across from an outdoor juice bar. Along the back side of the roof are 3 canopies providing shade for our additional outdoor seating. And just up these quartz stairs is our rooftop swimming pool, made of polished andesite and lit by frog lights. On the other end of the pool is an identical staircase and a tennis court. A rooftop probably isn't the best place to play a sport with a bouncing ball, but it's fine, just bring extra balls. And that pretty much concludes. What a chump. Gets me every time. Oh yeah, come check out my new mansion. I've added a couple things since I took the place over. Of course, I had to add a hidden passageway behind my bookshelves. Such a classic. And completely automatic. Then, coming down to the garage, just check out my new cars. That guy barely mentioned them in the tour. If I just hop in the blue one, it's so fast that it takes you straight to the end dimension. Pretty convenient. And I even thought of the perfect use for this glass floor. I'm going to build an right below it. If you've made it this far, thanks for watching. The clip you're seeing in the background now was me returning to my starter village to watch the sunset on day 1000, standing in the very spot where I stood 6 months ago, with 0 subscribers and nothing but a dream. So thank you for joining me on this journey, and if you'd like to keep up with my future videos, consider subscribing.